After back-to-back mid-table finishes, can North End push on this season under Ryan Lowe, and what's in store for them? Well, to discuss all these things and more, I'm delighted to be joined by Ollie Hargreaves and Jack from the Butter Pie podcast. Good evening, gents. How are we?
Good evening, Gab. Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you very much.
I'm also great too, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. Ollie, how do you reflect on the first 18 months of Ryan Lowe's tenure?
Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, to be fair to you, Gab. You know, there's been great times and there's also been lows. Ryan Lowe's. What I would say was, there was a time where I thought, he's one game off being sacked, and then he completely turns it around. So it's one of those where he's at this time where he's got supporters and he doesn't have supporters. There's always going to be a few of them that obviously don't like him, but I think in the mainstead, there's fans supporting him. He's done well. He's done fairly well. I think he's done brilliantly, to be fair, with the squad that we currently have. And then obviously looking how paper thin the squad is for next season, if he's able to recruit correctly, I can't see why not we wouldn't be able to do well. But in that sense, if we don't recruit smartly, we could be right in the thick of it come, the next season. We could be right down there, to be fair, because everyone's obviously upgrading their teams, doing some smart recruitment, and at the moment we've brought in Calvin Ramsey, which we're needing probably 8 or 9 other players as well. So it's one of those where he can only do what he's got at the table. You're only as good as manager if you have the players that you need to have. I mean, at the moment, our youth team's showing up our first team in pre-season, so I think that speaks for itself.
How are you feeling about it all, Jack?
Well, firstly, I think it's been a very hit and miss 18 months for him. I mean, I'm fully a backer of Ryan Lowe, and I see what he's trying to do. I just never really think he's had the resources to do it. But hopefully that changes this season. Obviously, with Calvin Ramsey coming in, that is something that we've needed ever since he set foot in the door. So we're so glad. I'm so glad that we've got that right wing back sorted. But we still need a lot more. Squad is, like Ollie said, is paper thin, and obviously it seems like in these friendlies at the minute that the youth team's the only one that's showing up. So there is still a lot of work to do for Ryan Lowe to get where we want to be. But hopefully this season is that season where the changes are made for Ryan Lowe to really succeed.
Who are the players, do you think, Ollie, that Ryan Lowe can build around as he looks to try and hope to move forward rather than I suppose regress into a relegation dogfight this year?
Players to build around. Well, you're nitpicking here. Realistically, it's got to be Ben Whiteman, but I don't think he's going to be here by the end of summer. I don't think he's signing a new deal. He's coming into the last 12 months. I think he'll be off. So then you lower it down again. I think realistically, you've got Alan Brown. There's still a bit and ahhing about some fans. They still don't potentially like what he does and brings to the table. Yeah, sometimes he can just get lost in the middle of midfield, but when he's on the ball, the quality's there, and he's a fantastic player at this level. So, you probably look at Brown. I know he's not really been in and around the team much, but you look at Ali McCann potentially. And then obviously you've got Emil Reese coming back from his ACL injury. I'm not sure how he's going to be dealing too much, but when you've got a 20-goal a season striker, you got to build around him and give him the resources that he needs. So I'm not sure how he's going to deal with coming back. Hopefully he's fit and ready. I mean, we've got Ched as well, who's coming off a neck injury. I thought he wouldn't play again, to be fair to him. Still unsure that he's going to. I know he's training, but you're having a serious spinal injury, and you get smashed once more in the back of the neck, and it's game over. So in that essence, you can't really build around Reece or Evans because you're not really sure what's going to happen with them. So you're probably looking at Alan Brown, I would say, captain of the club, been here since. Well, he's spent his life at the club, and I think he'll
coming up to 10 years now, I'd have thought.
Yeah, he's dedicated pretty much his life to Preston North End, and you know, to be fair, I can't see him going anywhere anytime soon. I think he'll finish his career at Peony, which is quite strange. I mean, in the current level where you just have a one-man team, one-man club, I should say. It's just it's one of those. I think he deserves to be have a team built around him, and I think he deserves that quality because, you know, I think one time in his career he does deserve to play in the Premier League. So we've got to help him get there, really.
It's interesting, Jack, listening to you both speak. Neither of you seem hugely optimistic about Preston North End, and yet last season you massively outperformed the budgetary rank. So what do you think that, you know, I reckon there will be some outsiders that would probably be listening to this and thinking, am I missing something here? So what do you think that thing is that other people might not be able to pick up on that maybe makes you feel a little bit more pessimistic about North End?
Well, in terms of the pessimism, it's more the squad depth and the quality in the depth. There's really nothing there. When we look at our midfield now without Daniel Johnson and Josh Onomar, and then you can potentially add Ben Whiteman to not being at the club, we are extremely thin. We've suddenly gone from having probably one of the more underrated midfields in the Championship to probably one of the worst. You know, we've got Alan Brown and Ali McCann, who are the two real players in that midfield where I think, you know, there is true quality there. But then you look at players like Ryan Ledson, who the fan base is very divisive over, you know, and obviously there's in the defence as well, we're extremely thin there. We've got no Alvaro anymore. We don't know who's going to play there. And then you got Calvin Ramsey, but who's we don't even know if he's going to set the world alight because he's only just coming back from a very serious injury. And then you look at the centre-backs, Liam Lindsay, who can be very hot and cold. And then Bambo Diaby, another very hot and cold player. And then obviously Jordan Story, who is probably more consistent out of the other centre-backs. And then Patrick Bauer, who just doesn't have that match sharpness.
He gets injured a lot, doesn't he, as well, Bauer?
Exactly that. But yeah, the pessimism really more comes from the depth and the lack of quality in it. And yeah, I mean, I could see where people were coming from. Like last season, I was buzzing going into it. I was really buzzing going into the season last season, and I honestly thought if we just got the right additions in, probably we could have got playoffs. Although we came pretty close, I always thought like halfway through, I thought we overperformed. We really did overperform. So yeah, I think that just explains the pessimism around the fan base at the minute.
Sure. I mean, coming to you on that, Ollie, you've mentioned that there has been that criticism of Ryan Lowe, and I was quite surprised to hear that there was a period when a lot of fans wanted him out, when I kind of can't help but looking at this from an outside perspective and think Preston North End, not only of Preston, it's one thing having a bottom six budget at this level, but for example, it's easier managing Luton Town because they've actually got a really smart recruitment strategy and they've got a plan, and I think they've got an 20 development squad as well. So they've got lots of advantages which Preston North End don't have. So actually for Ryan Lowe to deliver top 10 form in his first season, second half of that campaign, and then a top half finish last season, I actually think, you know, is it going under the radar a little bit? Should we be giving Ryan Lowe a little bit more credit?
Yeah, I suppose you should, Gab. I think the expectation has come because obviously when, you know, you had Alex Neil here, you know, you're finishing just outside the playoffs and fighting for the playoffs every season. So I think it's that, you know, expectation more than ever. We're obviously overperforming every season. You know, technically we should be bottom six every season. But, you know, back then where, you know, you had players like Ben Davis, Ben Pearson, Callum Robinson, Jordan Hugill, and you think, we're light years away from that now. So
I missed that. I missed that North End side. I remember watching the sort of peak Alex Neil teams where a few seasons, I think it was his second season, where you just saw this electricity, and they would kind of obliterate teams in 15-minute spells, and so exciting, and the high pressing and quick transitions. It was such an exciting team to watch, and it just feels like this. I'm trying to think of the word now. It's like the ball. It's a bit forlorn almost. It's been neglected a little bit, the squad, over the last few years. Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, I know this massive thing, because especially this season, I know it's making it harder, and I think this is why we're going to be so pessimistic into it. I think it's widely known that the club are wanting to cut costs. I know that P&E, albeit we have a bottom six budget, but the amount we spend on wages compared to the amount of incomings that come in, we're right at the top for the amount of spending. We're getting close to spending £13 million a year.
Top in terms of wage bill.
Well, not in terms of what we spend on wages compared to what we have incoming, compared to like the sales and stuff.
Okay.
I think we're like, I think it was something like 163% we're spending on wages, which obviously comparing to the incomings is going to leave us in a lot of bother. I know there's been a talk before, and we're right at the top of spending 13 million a year, which the owners are putting in, and then again you're getting into the FFP rules if you're going to spend any more. So they've clearly spotted that. I know that for a fact. They've obviously seen the Lutons, the Coventrys, they're spending less wages than us, and look, they're both in the playoff final. So I'm guessing they're looking at that and thinking, well, why can't we? But in that retrospect, you've got to recruit smartly, and to recruit smartly, you've got to have a decent bit of money to put behind you. You look at Coventry with Hamer, Gyökeres. I know them two. I'm not sure how much Gyökeres was. Was he a free?
I think it was like $500,000, something like that.
Yeah, still for P&E, $500,000 would be our budget for the entire season. So you look at that. So, Hamer, you're spending $1 million on, Gyökeres $500K. And then, you're also bringing in some decent quality players from the Championship. But, if we've not got a pretty penny to spend, we've got to be so smart this season if you're wanting to cut costs and having the right players that come in to then be able to challenge. Because, this is why the pessimism comes in. And I think Jack will agree is, we're needing 7 or 8 players who are first team quality. You're losing players like Daniel Johnson, potentially even Ben Whiteman, and players who've been there at the Championship level, and you need to replace them, but with what money? And for free agents, this season clubs are just spending silly wages on for free agents. And where are P&E going to stand? We're not. If we're wanting to cut costs, we're not going to be able to challenge with those above us. You look at Birmingham, like linked with Alfredo Morelos, like that's completely out of the equation for us. He's probably going to be.
I think it's out of the equation for us as well.
Probably. Yeah. But these clubs around us, we finish around us, they're able to, spend, £20,000-30,000 on wages. I think now the only player that's close to 20 at our club is Alan Brown. So I think he's on about 18 grand, and the rest are probably you're looking at 12. So we can't really compete for those type of players. So we got to bring in the players on the cheap with cheap wages who also have the quality. So that's where we're at. And recruitment recently, in terms of when we were able to use obviously the wages, hasn't been the greatest. It doesn't really fill you with much confidence of when the shit hits the fan and you really need to recruit smartly for the cheapest option. With that's the way it is. That's how I see it. I'm not sure how Jack will see it, because obviously it is what it is. But
I agree with you.
The club's got to get it right. The club's got to get it right with the right role, with the right wages. So
yeah, I massively agree with Ollie there. It's not only that, we have to now, employ the sort of philosophy where we have to sign these players for cheap, and then sell them on for higher value. The thing is, and I think it's good looking back in hindsight. But we probably should have sold Pearson a lot earlier and Ben Davies a lot earlier than we did.
Handling of contracts has been really poor, I think, Jack.
Exactly that. And
you look at Ben Whiteman now. If we don't sell him this summer, he's going to go walk on a free.
And even then, we're going to get absolute peanuts for him.
And fans, this is the thing, fans are always going to say, we want to keep our best players, we don't want to see them go. But actually, the most successful clubs, they want to be able to sell their players because, A, that's how you run a sustainable football club, by selling players on. And also, it shows to other clubs that, hang on, you can actually come and progress your careers and get a bigger move by coming to Preston North End. I think that's how every club should think. So, totally with you on that one.
Yeah. In retrospect, we probably should have sold Emil Rees for $8 million in January before he got the ACL injury, but we turned it down. But then again, the past recruitment, the players we sold, the players we replaced it with, is frankly grim. We replaced Pearson with Ledson. We placed Ben Davies with who? Greg Cunningham with Greg Cunningham 3 years later, which was fantastic. And Callum Robinson with Josh Dinelli, which I know he's gone to Swansea and done well at Hearts. But at the time, he came in and played 2 games for us and got shipped out on loan to Bristol Rovers. So,
It reminds me a little bit of, I think in 2004, Everton released, I think it was a defender called Pistone, and then they actually got him back that same summer. So funny how these things sometimes happen, isn't it? But it does sort of make you question a club's logic as well. And if you're getting Greg Cunningham back after releasing Greg Cunningham, that's not exactly. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the youth academy, Jack, you've both touched on the fact that the youngsters have sort of upstaged some of the senior players. So I just wondered if there are any that are coming through that particularly excite you at the moment.
I think there is only one on PNE fans' minds in a minute, and that's Felipe Rodriguez Gentile, who's been linked with Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, Man United, all these big European clubs, and yet he signed a scholarship with us. But yeah, no, he's the one that sticks out in my mind at the minute. He's just scored today. He's also assisted today against the European Conference League team. He also scored an absolute worldie against Bamber Bridge. I mean, no disrespect to Bamber Bridge, but even then, he still has to step up. And he's like, 16, 17 years old? And he's stepping up against adults.
Yeah, he's 16, 17. He's about 5'3", 5'4", so he's very lightweight. But I'm not gonna link him with the king himself, Lionel. But he's got to play with what he's got. And to be fair, he's doing the stuff. He's not the quickest. Obviously he's not the strongest. He's not the tallest, but he can play. He can play if he bulks out a bit. He can play.
It's just all about whether he can, bulk out and not lose that flair that he's got, really, because that is a thing with in just the UK in general with youth academies, where some youngsters who have that flair have sort of coached it out of them. And I'm sort of hoping we don't coach out of it, because it will be such a difference maker, and it's such a breath of fresh air, to see him when me and Oliver saw him against Southampton a few months back in the FA Youth Cup, ran the show. He was going toe-to-toe with these lads bigger than him, much bulkier than him. And he has that aggression in him, which is probably a South American trait, really, because, they're very good on the ball, but they're also aggressive. And, it's really good to see that. And I just hope he signs a professional deal, because he'll be such an asset in the future. I could even see him maybe getting a professional contract this summer if he keeps it up. I mean, we'll be stupid not to.
What I'd also say, though, is we also have to keep a strong head on to it. He's a 16-year-old lad,
exactly,
who's coming from a Category 3 academy. In that retrospect, so yes, he's doing good, but I mean, I think Peony, a lot of fans have just sprung onto the fact that he's Brazilian, he can play for Brazil or Argentina. What's he doing at Peony? A Brazilian and Argentinian youngster, with a name of Rodriguez Gentile. He scored 5 against Rotherham. We thought we had the next Messi. So, to be fair to the lad, he has a lot of weight on his shoulders because there's a lot of expectation now. The hype is building and building and building, and what I don't want that to be is to be knocked down as soon as possible, because he is very lightweight, so he's probably not ready as of yet. However,
Obviously,
he's
still
scored.
very raw.
He scored. Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those where if you overhype it too much, he's a 16-year-old lad, and the expectations getting quite high between P&E fans.
See, the thing is, though, I think the expectation thing, Ollie, is kind of partly a reflection of the fact that North End fans don't feel like, from what you've described, they don't feel like they've got much to grab onto. So the minute they see a 16-year-old who's got this potential, and he's, an Argentine, or what dual nationality, someone from South American kid, it's like, this is so exciting.
Yeah,
there's a bit of just grabbing onto that excitement, I guess.
It really is. But obviously, we have to remember he's a 16-year-old lad. But I mean,
we can't break him. We can't break him.
Yeah, you can't put too much onto his shoulders, otherwise, the expectations will be there for him to, come on into the championship. Fair enough. He got nine players in the squad on the subs bench come this summer, and you might allow him 5 subs. You could potentially see him on the subs bench, but he's got a lot of hype around him at the moment. I just hope he's able to obviously deal with it and get his grasp on the professional game.
I do feel he will get his opportunity though. Sorry for interrupting, but it's like I do see him getting some opportunities this season. Maybe not like a starter or anything, or like 30 minutes, maybe like the last 10 minutes of a game. Just see what he can do. Just throw something different in there. But also, I'd have to say an honourable mention in terms of youth players is Lewis Lee. I think he's a very strong central midfielder. I mean, he went to the same high school that I did, a few years younger, but he was one of the talked about youth players at the minute, and along with Rodriguez Gentile. I think
they're two of the most youth players that have been linked with Prem clubs as well. I know Lee was linked with Everton and Arsenal before he signed, obviously, the scholarship with us. And you got Gentile, obviously, with Atletico Madrid United and the others. So, they've clearly got something about them, Gab. It's just, whether or not they get the chance.
The opportunity. Yeah.
Do you see Lewis Lee as a box-to-box midfielder, or midfielder, or enforcer?
I think you could probably see him more as a defensive side of midfielder. He can get up and down the pitch, but he's more defensive minded, hard tackles hitting. I think if you could base him on a player of P&Es at the moment, it'd probably be more Ryan Ledson than Ben Whiteman, if that's anything to go off, Gab. More hard tackling.
He can be moulded.
Yeah.
He's still at the age where he can be moulded into a very tidy deep line playmaker or something like that. Like Whiteman, he's got an engine on him as well. That kid can run. So it's definitely he's another very exciting prospect. This season.
You know what I mean? I think the importance. I agree with your point, Jack, that it's important that you don't put too much expectation on him. But I also feel like at the moment for North End, there probably is a bit of leeway, especially seeing as Lewis Lee is 19 rather than 16, which Felipe Rodriguez Gentile is. Actually just give him a bit of a window, because I think if you get a homegrown lad that can just come in with no fear, without being sort of burdened by, the sort of general feeling of the club are at the moment, there is that possibility for him to just really rejuvenate the team and the club. And not that you would sort of put that expectation on him, but just give him that window to show what he can do. I feel like that's probably worth doing for where North End are at the moment. I wanted to ask you, Ollie, about Freddie Woodman. How are you feeling about him going into next season as North End's number 1?
Yeah, top keeper. I think for North End especially what they've done in recent seasons, obviously with Iverson and Woodman, is they've got the keeping spot on. They brought in the correct keepers. Woodman on a free, albeit Newcastle have a hefty sell-on fee. It's a fantastic deal. He's he's probably not as good as Iverson when it comes to shot stopping. His distribution's great. He's not as commanding in the area, but we've got commanding centre half, so he doesn't really need to do that too much. He's a brilliant keeper, and definitely one that we were looking to keep from the summer. I know Rangers were linked with him sometimes. I remember listening to a podcast that he did with Mark Howard, and he mentioned that there was links with Rangers. Obviously, they've gone down the Jack Butland route, so we're keeping hold of him. There was links to Leeds. He's a £5 million goalkeeper at the end of the day, Gab. So, he's probably one of our most he's one of our only sellable assets at the moment. So, with his clean sheets last season and his know-how, he's definitely one to be happy to have in between the sticks at deep down.
Yeah, hopefully North End can build around him. I want to talk to you, Jack, about Calvin Ramsey, because I don't feel like we've really explored this signing enough yet, because this is somebody who won Scottish Young Player of the Year for Aberdeen, or Scottish Football Writers Association Young Player of the Year, should I say, for his work with them in 21-22. So he's already proven himself in the Scottish Premiership. And Liverpool, when they signed him in 2022, gave him a 5-year contract. Now, I think a 5-year contract is a huge statement for a club of Liverpool's sort of stature, because they're saying when you're 23, we want you to still be under contract at our football club. And obviously, if a 23-year-old's at Liverpool, they're probably going to be pretty good. So, are you excited to see what Calvin Ramsey can do at right back? Because you obviously showed what you obviously used the loan market well last season with Alvaro Fernandez from Man United.
I'm very excited, but I'm also very, very worried because we don't know where he's going to be at when he gets back from his rehab over his, I think it was his knee that he did. Got a long-term injury to his knee, so we don't know where he's going to be at. It will take some time for him to be, fully integrated into the squad, into the starting 11. So I don't expect him to start right away. I still expect Potts to still have that right wing back role at the start for the first few. Yeah, for the
Even
first.
when Calvin Ramsey's fit.
Yeah, I think it'll be a question of Ramsey's fitness. Just let Ramsey get fitness and sharpness.
Okay.
Back up to standard, and then we can explore when he can start. But I'm very excited by his ability. He can get up and down that right hand flank, for 90 minutes, and it's just can really stretch out to the pitch. Obviously, very technically gifted, and obviously, if Liverpool see him as a future star, then who are we to say that he's not? It is a signing that we've needed, and obviously with our history with the loan market, I feel like this is going to be another one of them loan signings where you probably shouldn't get too attached, because it probably will hurt again, like it did with the others.
Yeah, I disagree with the point that I think Potts will start the season. I think Ramsey will come in. I think Ramsey gives us a lot more option than Potts. I think Potts potentially might end up in the centre of midfield, talking about how we're going to go around with the recruitment process. I can see Ramsey starting the season. The thing is with Ramsey, you can play a flat four with him, which we've not been able to do with Brad Potts, because he's not right back. He's not. He can play right wing back and potentially right mid and centre mid, but he's not a right back. So we've been struggling against teams where we probably need to play a flat four. I think Ramsey gives that. So I'd probably see more so Brad Potts within the centre of midfield this season, rather than at right wing back. But as Jack mentions, it's not our decision at the end of the day. Potts has been a mainstay, albeit he's been decent now and then. He's clearly not got that much going forward. He can't really beat one-on-one. And, with Ramsey, you look at the highlights at Aberdeen, he's taking it past, one or two people and getting the ball in the box. So it's exactly what we've needed. And he also gives that defensive stability. So, I can't see how we wouldn't start him at the start of the season.
Your point about Brad Potts in the midfield. I was actually talking to my friend about this the other day, that I could potentially see him starting as a bit of a, as an attack-minded central midfielder. Not exactly an attacking midfielder, but like just someone who makes late runs into the box. Because that is what he's kind of good at. We saw that under Frankie McAvoy. The amount of late runs he made into the box and scored. He's just a bit of a brute when he runs into the box.
Can I just make a point on that, actually? When with Ryan Lowe's Bury side, they had a number 8 called Jay O'Shea, who made some runs into the box and got a lot of goals that way. I think he was on pens that year and he got quite a few goals as well. But he was definitely that sort of number 8 that breaks into the box and gets goals. So whether there's a possibility of Brad Potts taking on that role, because when he was at Carlisle at the start of his career, that was his main strength, sort of driving forward and providing that sort of thrust. So maybe it's a case of go back to what you're good at. I mean, obviously it's hard in the Championship, and whether it's still quite there is another question, but that's something to look at.
That's something about Potts. Something about Potts, though, is I don't think he's a bad player at all. I actually think he's a very good player. I do commend his mentality. He's always never been someone to, to back down. He's always up for a fight. He's always up for a challenge, which is what I really like about Brad Potts. We saw that at its best against Blackpool when he scored. By the way, and I can never say a bad word about Brad Potts again because of that. Anyway, but no, I would like to see him return to that central midfield role if Calvin Ramsey does start right wing back or right back, because it is something he's good at. It is a role he's really good at, and obviously, like you said, Ryan Lowe has a history with playing players like that. So yeah, I think we could see a big season from Brad Potts.
Let's hope that's the case. I want to talk to you about Ali McCann, Ollie, because I think he's somebody who you seem to have recognised when we've been on this podcast before as one of North End's better players. He's obviously got that selflessness to be able to adjust to different positions, and he's one of many players that's played right wing back over the last couple of seasons for North End. But how important do you see him being this year?
Obviously, it depends on Whiteman, really. I'm not sure if you totally change the system. If
different type of player, though, to Whiteman.
Yeah, he's a different type of player, but I think, if Whiteman's not playing for North End, then you could see potentially North End completely changing the way their midfield looks. I can see McCann, potentially dropping deeper than he normally is. Yeah, we played him as, an 8. I think he's more of a 6, but wins the ball. But I see more of a 6, not in the way of like a ball play midfielder, but more of a he's tenacious and can win the ball back. He kind of reminds
me of Ben Pearson.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Ben Pearson in a way. Where he can intercept the play. He's got great footballing IQ. Albeit he can get up and support the attack, but I mean, I think his best asset is obviously just reading the game and being in the right position to, intercept the ball. So, in my retrospect, his probably best position is deeper than where he usually is. I'm not too sure if he's going to be like that, because then you've got, you say if Whiteman does stay around, you've got Whiteman in the 6, you have McCann, and then you're probably going to play Brown, where realistically there's not really much creativity in the final third coming from that. So you'll then have the defence, a midfield that probably is just full of runners at the moment. Yeah, you got a bit of creative spark with Whiteman, but he's there's only so much you can do with Hollywood balls at the end of the day, and then you put in a lot of trouble on the top 2 or the top 3 potentially if we play a 3-4-3, and then you're asking a lot of the wing backs, and we've got Robbie Brady, albeit, and we've got Calvin Ramsey, so that's the way it is.
Yeah, I just feel, though, the way Ryan Lowe's tended to play historically, he's He's tended to like the deepest midfielder to be not necessarily a Hollywood ball type, but someone who can be a bit of a metronomic presence and keep things ticking over. So Jordan Rossiter in the example of the Bury side that he had, and then Plymouth Argyle, I'm sure, had someone like that who's maybe Jordan Houghton, I think possibly, and then we go to Ben Whiteman. I'm just not quite sure that Ali McCann will do that sort of job, but we'll see. So, I mean, I want to ask you about the task of replacing Alvaro Fernandez, Jack, because you've obviously got Robbie Brady there, but we probably can't rely on him starting all the games that are required. And then just having a quick glance through the squad at the moment, I suppose you've got Greg Cunningham. Is he necessarily going to provide the up and down thrust that North End are going to need? Would you like to see the club maybe bring in a super athletic wing back that can really get up and down?
Larucci.
Yeah, Larucci, who we've been linked with, that is the name that's being bandied about in a minute. And from looking at him, especially when he was at Liverpool, he's someone who exactly fit the type of profile that a Ryan Lowe would like at left wing back. He can obviously be a permanent option as well, from the sounds of it. So yeah, we really need to get this replacement right, because I'm not exactly confident of Robbie Brady at left wing back, nor am I confident of Greg Cunningham there. I'm barely comfortable with Greg Cunningham at centre back. Never mind left wing back. But that's yeah, we need to get that right, because Alvaro was just. I can't speak highly enough of him. I genuinely think that kid has a very, very, very high ceiling. But yeah, Larucci, who we've been linked with, seems to tick all the boxes that we need in that left wing back role, especially that, what we're missing from that position, which, if we're being quite frankly honest, is everything. So we really need to get that position sorted out ASAP. And from the sounds of it, all the rumors at the moment, it seems to be getting dealt with. But obviously, when I saw that,
is Larucci a loan option or permanent? Do you know?
I think it would be a permanent option from Troyes in France.
From Troyes.
Yeah,
I was shocked myself, but obviously when it comes to a loan option, he's played 30 games in League One last season. And what seems to be the rumour at the moment is that he's got a relegation clause in his contract. Obviously, as Troyes got relegated last season, I think that obviously lowers the price tag, because you look on transfer market, he's worth 3.5 million euros.
Well, this is the other thing, because I've just had a look. He was France under 21s as recently as 2022.
Yeah.
So, for Preston North End to get that just
massive.
Seems extraordinary.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially when I saw Birmingham sign Ethan Laird, that really annoyed me, because it was like, apparently the fee was very cheap, and when I heard that, I was really, really annoyed, because it was like, should have been a player that we should have been all over. Because if it wasn't for Larucci, I would have said go after Ethan Laird, because that kid has everything. Again, he's one of them that has everything for a left wing back.
I'm buzzing with that one, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about the centre-back position, Ollie, because we touched on it earlier. You've obviously got Patrick Bauer, who I don't think we can rely on much to start too many games. Liam Lindsay can be a little bit inconsistent. I think we've talked about, same with Bambo Diaby. And then Jordan Story's the one who might be able to find some consistency, I suppose, at a real push. Andrew Hughes can play there. Would you expect the club to bring in one more centre-back, or would that be quite low on the priority list, given the other areas that need strengthening?
I could see North End bringing in a centre back.
I suppose if you're playing with a back three, that changes it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't see Bauer getting much game time next season, but I also can't see where he's going to be leaving to. There's been links with Jack Watmore at Wigan. Obviously, that would be a fairly decent signing. Obviously, we talk about Jordan Story and the consistency. He's been, brilliant in the defensive aspect. But what Ryan Lowe asked for from his wide centre backs is that they're overlapping. You see Andrew Hughes getting to the byline. You don't see that from Jordan Story. So I'm not sure if that changes in the system potentially, where you look at potentially getting someone like a right-sided centre back.
I feel like I have seen. I mean, I kind of feel a bit sheepish arguing with you about this, but I'm sure I've seen one or two clips of highlights from North End last year where Sorry did make some overlapping runs.
It's just not the same as Hughes, though. It's not the same fluidity, and it just feels a bit awkward. It just feels a bit awkward when it gets to that aspect. And I think me and Jack spoke about it, where you potentially got a player like Deshaun Bernard on a free.
No, you're talking. Yeah.
So you potentially look at that in that retrospect. You've got that brings in. I can see Story's a brilliant central centre back.
But then I suppose that kind of brings us on to another issue, Ollie, which is you seem to have a lot of good central centre backs. So Lindsay's probably best in the middle of a back three. Same with Bauer. Same with Jordan Story. Same with Bambo Diaby. So you've almost got 4 centre backs there that are probably best.
Yeah. So you need, but then again, you do need a couple of central centre backs if you're going to play a flat 4, which I think what we've looked at is to mainstead that and just make sure that we can actually play that flat 4. You know, if we've got central defenders, make sure of that. So I can understand in that aspect, but you've also got to bring in these wide centre backs, as we mentioned. You know, Andrew Hughes. Andrew Hughes has been okay. I think the system really helps him, makes him look a lot better as well. Yeah. So, you know, if you're able to get someone like Andrew Hughes on the other side, as we mentioned, Deshaun Bernard, you're able to get up and down that flank, overlap from Connor Bradley. It's a win-win situation. So, yeah, especially with Daniel Johnson as well. He hovered a lot over down the left-hand side. I think that was probably because you have Alvaro Fernandez, you have Andrew Hughes. So, you know, all that clubs needed to really do was box off that left-hand side and, you know, you're onto a winner. So,
I've got a suggestion for you guys. If you want an outside centre back that'll allow Calvin Ramsey to stay super high up the pitch, there's a lad called Josh Cogley who's out of contract at Tranmere. He's expected to go. He played right back for Tranmere last season, but he's super athletic. And I spoke to a Tranmere fan on this podcast yesterday who says he was never beaten one-on-one. So if you want a really athletic centre back that can make the overlapping runs, I think that Josh Cogley might be an option because that way you also minimise the risk because he's not going to get beaten one-on-one and he's pretty tall and he's very strong as well. So that's my suggestion.
I don't want to. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ollie, but I'm pretty sure we were linked with him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were linked with him. Yeah, but what also we're also linked with Watmore as well. Now, Watmore's probably a more central centre half again, so you're topping up on central centre halves once more. But yeah, I swear we were linked with. Was it either that guy Cogley at Tranmere, or was it the other one who's just signed for Bolton?
Who signed for not Forrester?
No, double-barrelled name. I think was it a left back?
So Ethan Bristow was the one at Tranmere.
Who? I swear someone left Tranmere and signed for like Bolton or something, or second tier side. The double-barrelled name.
I don't think there's. I don't know if there's someone who have Bolton signed. Let me.
Yeah. I swear we got linked with someone with a double-barrelled name, Jack. For like left back.
From Tranmere, Josh Dacres Cogley.
Oh, it is Dacres Cogley. Oh, Bolton have signed him. Oh, I completely missed that. You know.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Oh, what? Yeah, they have.
Oh, okay.
I've just seen that.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, wow.
So that's ignore that one.
So that's
that was out the window.
That's so weird. I completely missed that Bolton had signed Dacres Cogley. Okay, I knew he was leaving Tranmere. I didn't know he'd actually confirmed again. Okay, right.
Got any more suggestions?
I mean, from now on, I'm only going to suggest players who have already signed for Bolton. I'll have to go back to the drawing board for this one. Yeah, so in terms of, you've said 8 or 9 more new players are going to be needed, Ollie. So coming to you on this, Jack, where are the positions that North End have got to strengthen? You think obviously a right-sided centre-back is going to be one of them.
Left wing back,
yeah.
Wide centre backs.
2 wide centre backs, or would you have Hughes and Cunningham?
2. I've got 2.
Can Cunningham play left?
So
you've already got Andrew Hughes though. I mean, Cunningham at a push might be able to play left centre back.
He's
So
only on a 6-month deal. That's the thing.
Yeah. And his fitness is never a guarantee. And
But then would you have
obviously 2
three left
strikers.
centre backs,
That's
though?
5 now. I've got
3 strikers.
Yeah, 3 strikers.
I don't know.
If you're playing a 3-4-3, we need at least 1 or 2 wingers.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd say winger as well. I know winger.
You need a central.
I'd say 2 central midfield.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe you could go for an inside forward that can also play up top, so that you're not, it's not.
Yeah. That's what you probably need.
If you want to get the right quality of players in, sometimes you've got to compromise on the quantity, and not necessarily have 3 players for each position.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been links thrown around here, there, and everywhere of North End players. There was this lad from Denmark, this Frosjard Jensen. And there's been a rumour of Aaron Connolly, potentially. So, you look at Connolly, for example. He probably played best in a front 3 where he comes in off an inside forward. So, as you say there, Gab, you potentially give that option. I'm not too sure on too much on the Jensen lad. I'm not sure if he's going to be, potentially coming in as a winger or, an attacking midfielder. But he seems like
he's a 10. He's a 10 according to some Odense fans. He's a 10 who's very, very, very creative. Can read the game very, very well.
And to be fair, I don't think I know we released him, but I'm not sure it's over yet. I think Josh Onomer might be snooping around a bit. I know. The only reason he probably left was I think there was issues with his agent and we had to move on. But to be fair, as I always think, if a player in a club wants to get a deal done, they get it done. So I don't think that's dead in the water as of yet, Gap. So then you're probably lowering it down a bit more. So, you got 6 or 7 players that need to fill with not a lot of money. So...
Yeah, that's gonna need the recruitment team to get onto that one. So I've got a question then for you two. Which of you do you reckon's the more optimistic North Ender of the two of you?
Probably me, to be honest.
Yeah, I want one of you to answer.
I'll probably say me.
Okay, all right, I'll go to you then, Jack. What would be, if you had to make a case for North End really kicking on this season, shocking everyone and end up challenging for the playoffs, what would be your case?
Well, I'm struggling with this one.
I can answer that, to be fair for you, Jack.
Go on, Ollie.
Get the recruitment right and we'll be up there.
I mean, yeah, obviously... Yeah, if we was to get the recruitment right, get the players,
get a load of players. That's it.
I honestly believe if we do get these players in, then all of a sudden, I honestly believe we're back into a top half team again. If we do get these players and the recruitment right, but at the moment, I just see that's the thing. Pessimism is taken over now. It's hard to be quite optimistic at the minute. But I honestly do believe that if we do get the recruitment right, I think it goes without saying that any team can get the recruitment right and all of a sudden they're up there. But with Preston, I think we've already some of the players there, like Alan Brown, McCann, Reese. I still believe Emil Reese will come good this season. It might take him a bit of time to get up to speed again. But then obviously with Calvin Ramsey, Freddie Woodman, I still believe there is a good core of players there, sorry. And then just get these players in to come into an already good core, and then all of a sudden we're a top half team again. And I could see us pushing, not getting playoffs, but pushing.
Okay, well, let's hope North End can do that. Ollie, I'm going to give you the more pessimistic or cautious question, let's call it. What would be the reason to think this could be a bit of a struggle for the Lilywhites?
North End's normal recruitment strategy. The current squad probably finishes bottom half in League One, if I'm being brutally honest. So, you don't get the players. You're replacing Daniel Johnson with Ben Woodburn. you've not got a fit striker. Our only striker right now, you probably look at our only fit striker at the moment. You look is Rodriguez Gentile, a 16-year-old lad, and potentially another elder one. You look at Kip Nelson, maybe. You look in the youth team from Category 3 players. You gotta get someone who scores the goals. Reece isn't probably going to be back until mid-October. Chad Evans maybe might not even play again still. So you don't get these players in. You're struggling, Gab. You're losing a lot of players. Ben Whiteman, if you lose him, you lose a lot of quality. You have to replace him. Ryan Ledson, as a replacement for Ben Whiteman, is not good enough. It's a massive downgrade, and I think that's what the club may end up doing if we do end up losing him. So, it's a sticky one. If we don't get the players in that's correct and that's needed, it's going to be a real struggle next season because the current squad at the moment, albeit there's a couple of good players with a strong core, it takes a team to win matches. It doesn't take a couple of players. So you got to bring in those players to make this team. Otherwise, we're going to be right up against it.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, North End can get that recruitment right. What are your plans, Jack, for the podcast for this coming season? Then,
that's a good question, that Jack, isn't it?
Try and remain hopeful as possible, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I reckon just for the podcast alone. Obviously, remaining. More guests, yeah. We spoke to Sam Johnston a few weeks ago. That was a nice chat with Sam Johnston. We speak to a couple more guests. Obviously, just grow it a bit more. With the social media, Jack's doing fantastic. He's doing all the social media, so he's taking it up and a new level professionally, and it looks fantastic. When I told him, oh yeah, can you do the socials? I think we were on like 600 followers, and then straight back to a month later, we're just under 1,000. So we're still trying to hit that 1,000 mark, Gab. We're nearly there on Twitter.
Not far off now.
Not far off now.
11 or 12 now off.
Yeah, and then we've opened up the Instagram as well. Jack's going to be, yeah. So all hail Jack, the social media king at the moment. So yeah, exactly. So. But for myself, I think it's just obviously to remain consistent with the episodes. I know it did fall away a bit last season because both me and Jack and a couple of other lads had a lot of work going on. So especially me and Jack with university, but now we're finished. So a bit more spare time now to be able to focus on the podcast. So yeah, just grow as much as possible and just keep plugging away, Gab, and hopefully remaining positive.
Absolutely. Well, go check out the Butter Pie podcast. Gents, absolutely love your stuff. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. This has been EFL Debate, the Preston North End Summer Deep Dive. Thanks to you for watching at home. We'll see you again very soon.